Hello and welcome everyone to the January 18th edition of the SIG ContribEx meeting, SIG meeting. That's what this is. As a reminder, we do have a code of conduct that we abide by, which generally says to be respectful of your fellow attendees and the speakers, and generally be excellent to each other. And so first off, we already mentioned we've got a note taker, wonderful, and it looks like folks have mostly added themselves to the attendee list. Before we dive into our topics, I want to offer the opportunity for anyone who's new to introduce themselves. Completely optional. You're welcome to do it through chat or to unmute, but we'd love to hear who you are and what you're interested in learning here.
Maybe I can go. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, actually, I'm not new for the SIG Docs and SIG Contributor Summit staff events, but for the experience, actually, I have not here for a while. And last year I was there for during the Valencia conference preparation. I hope you remember me, Kaslin. So
yeah,
so
I was like, that name looks familiar. Is he really new?
yeah. So I was not here for a while, so I coming back with a bang. So let's hope to contribute for the community and help and learn the things, and that's whatnot. Yeah, that's
wonderful. Glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Can I?
Of course, please.
Hello, I'm Somnath Golui. I'm new to the community. I'm still getting familiar with the Kubernetes 6 meetings. I'm first time attending a meeting, and I'm still learning about what Kubernetes is, and mostly I'm reading stuff in CNCF glossary type Kubernetes glossary stuff. Sorry for my English. I'm a bit
perfect. You're
slow
doing great.
Okay, I'm looking forward to learn and contribute more in the and getting familiar with the stakes that Kubernetes. Thank you. That's all.
Welcome. Excited to have you. Anyone else? I think that's it. So since we do have a couple of new
Hey, sorry for the interruption.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I left.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Sujay. I'm from India, and also I'm a beginner and looking forward to contribute and get involved in the community. And this is my second meeting. See you.
Yay. So glad to have you on for the second time. It's a good trend. Keep it going. Anyone else? All right. If you'd like to hop in at any time to introduce yourself, just let us know, and you're also welcome to do so in the chat. Since we do have a couple of new-ish folks on at least, I'll do a little reminder here that we are the special interest group for contributor experience, and please excuse the cat if she popped into frame. So as the special interest group for contributor experience, a lot of our work focuses around the contributors who make Kubernetes what it is and making sure that they have a good experience being part of the project, that they have the resources that they need to support them, all of that kind of stuff. So we'll go over a variety of topics in this meeting, a variety of projects that we do in order to support our contributors. And with that, let's dive in. We have an opening topic from Tim Allclair. Would you like to tell us about it?
Yes, thanks. Hello. I'm Tim Allclair, not new to the Kubernetes community. I've been working on Kubernetes since 2015, but haven't spent too much time in SIG contributor experience, so happy to be here. Yeah, so there's been a kind of a conversation going on for a while where people are dissatisfied with the way our triage bots mark issues and PRs as stale, rotten, and then eventually close them. I think the number one complaint that I hear from contributors is that it's too frequent and that it ends up kind of spamming people's inboxes. I know personally, when I go through my GitHub notifications, especially issue notifications, I would guess that approximately half of those are just either the bot marking things as stale or rotten, or people responding to the bot to unmark them as stale and rotten. So that was kind of the primary motivation of this PR. Actually, let's see. Yeah, so don't, yeah, so I guess that's the primary thing we're looking to fix. There's also some discussion about whether auto closing is the right thing to do at all. I know Ben Elder made a change, I think late last year, to stop auto closing help wanted and good first issues. Yeah, this is mostly focused on just changing the time to mark things as rotten. So with that, the changes that I'm proposing are, one is to kind of use the existing triage tags that we have. And so with this change, if an issue has already been triaged by maintainers, and so it has that label, I can't remember exactly what it is, but triage accepted, I think it is. So if it has that label on it, then we don't ever mark the issue as stale or rotten or auto close. I can't remember if I made that change, but if it's not marked rotten, it won't auto close. So that's kind of the first change. That's the biggest one, is to kind of stop auto triaging those triaged things. The second piece is to actually unmark things as being triaged after 1 year. So this is a much longer timeline than the 3 months to mark as stale. And this makes the triage step essentially the first part of the life cycle. And it also does force maintainers to look at issues and kind of confirm if it's something that is still needed after 1 year. And then, yeah, the third piece is just removing a workflow that was redundant after this change. And then in response to some comments from Sergey, I reverted the changes, or I separated out the PR workflow. So the PR workflow is largely unchanged. It will still go stale after 30 days, or sorry, 90 days, and then rotten, and then closed. Because PRs open without activity for much longer tend to go stale a little faster. But issues tend to still be relevant after up to a year or more. Yeah, so those are the changes that I was proposing. With that, any questions, comments?
I know our group has been talking a lot about using tags to keep track of issues. So I think these are some interesting changes. I think
is the triage change after a year? Like, that seems long to me. Or is there any data backing that up? I guess, was it just arbitrary? Like, after a year, this will just be cleared of triage?
Yeah, it's arbitrary. Okay. There's no
That's
data.
Fair. No. I was just curious if, that was like the standard time for things to go like actually rotten.
No, I think based on our experience, 30 days to stale felt too fast.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We could double that, but I felt like going all the way to a year. I think a lot of issues are still relevant after a single release cycle, which is now approximately 4 months. And so this says, like, if it's been open across 3 release cycles, approximately.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, cool.
We can always adjust it also.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
I think that fits well with the release cadence, actually.
So in general, I'm support, like my first question was literally going to the PRs, but you answered that one. I'm all for it. I haven't really taken a look at the PR itself. But most of the repos outside of KK don't use the triage labels. So the main thing is we just have to make sure that it is configurable on a per repo basis and not being applied uniformly to I'm totally blanking on the name of the component in Prow. But in general, I like the idea.
If a repo is not using the triage labels, then they will have the existing experience unchanged.
Okay. Someone else actually recently, I'm trying to find the issue, proposed some other potential changes to how we triage things. But for the life of me, I can't find it. Oh, yeah, here it is. I'm just sort of curious if you happen to have taken a look at this. Well, this one's more specific to PRs, so I guess it's not really relevant.
Yeah, I had seen this. I think it's an interesting proposal. But yeah, I agree that I don't think that it has any conflicts with the changes that I'm proposing.
I guess if we did want to send this out, I guess the next thing would be timing around actually making the change.
How much advance notice do you think we should give?
Well, I'm just thinking, like, if, like, you know, Tim, I'd bump your thread on the list for another chance for people to comment, just because December was kind of like the, yeah. But if people don't comment, it's still early enough in the 127 release cycle where we could probably just get it out now. Otherwise, I would probably punt till like after code freeze or something like that, just to like be in a time where it's generally settled.
I think it won't have any immediate effects because of so if it's untriaged, the behavior is the same. If
True.
it is a triaged issue, then it would only get unmarked triage if it didn't have any activity for a year. But it would have been marked as stale in less than a year, which counts as activity. So that wouldn't happen. Okay. I think it might cause some, I suppose it could cause some life cycle frozen triaged issues to get untriaged, but I think it ignores if the life cycle is frozen. So yeah, that shouldn't be an issue.
Even if life cycle frozen is on it, and the triage label potentially bumps off, it's not necessarily a problem to go revisit the frozen issues, because we still have some from like 2016 that aren't really I think we actually went through and closed them, but we had some as of like last year from like 2015, 2016 that weren't really relevant anymore.
My only thought is if we did it in the middle of a release cycle, if anyone happens to be mentally relying on that beep, the same way that I mentally rely on the fact that my microwave beeps every single minute after it's already done. If that affects anybody's workflow in the middle of a release cycle, that could potentially affect something that gets done.
Yeah.
But that's a very strange hypothetical.
There is a comment from someone who couldn't join the meeting, Sergi. Cannot join the meeting, maybe differentiate by priority, going back to issues seeming relevant through release cycles. It's not ideal to keep priority / important soon untouched for a year. Those either need to be closed or reprioritized as a backlog. Not sure how priority important long-term should be treated. Just a comment that clearly watching the agenda as we go through, but left a note.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. So I guess with what Sergey is proposing, then maybe after 3 months or so, we untriage important soon issues.
Yeah. My one sort of like general, like, I also don't necessarily want to like overcomplicate and create like a whole bunch of rules. Like, here's this workflow of how these things happen. Because the one problem is with KK being so large, you make one workflow change that touches, well, everyone.
Yeah, I think one thing that's important to remember is that this issue commenter bot is just using a GitHub query, and so you can make these same queries yourself, just in the issue search field. So, for instance, if you wanted to see show me issues that are marked important soon that haven't been touched in the last 90 days. It should be possible to do that.
Yeah. For what, like, I don't think, going back to the beep question, I don't think many people are relying on the beep. In fact, most people actually have rules to ignore the beep. The only thing I could really think of would be people potentially having their own sort of triage workflows, looking for when stale and all that's applied, like, oh, I need to look at this. But there are other alternatives for getting that sort of information too. So that's not necessarily I would not consider it a blocker. In general, I'm support. I'm a +1 for the idea and can comment on the issue. Yeah, I would say let's bump the thread on KDev again, and just to try and catch anyone else that potentially didn't see it. And if in general people are okay with it, we can get going with it soon. Does that sound
good? Yeah, I'm happy to bump the thread, and I'll continue discussing with Sergey on the PR comments as well.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan. Shall we move on?
Just one thing to add there. So if you look at the description of priority important soon, where it's documented, right? Like it says must be worked on currently or very soon, or ideally in time for the next release. So having that documented, I think Sergey's comment makes a lot of sense. So at least for priority importance soon, it should be excluded, in my opinion. And then reprioritize back to backlog, which is then in the same cycle as the current proposed change. I'll put this up on the PR as well, so that it's not lost in discussion. But like while everyone's here.
Okay. The one thing I'll say, like, there's what the description says it should be, and what people actually do, and those tend to be very different. With most of the priority things just being the like the whatchamacallit one needs to get resolved right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. But important soon and critical urgent are two things which, or at least I've seen like there's no drift in the meaning of those.
Okay.
If we wanted to try to popularize a interpretation of something, we may have a sub-project that could help with that. Good to move on? Cool. I think that was good discussion on that. Sounds like there'll be more going on the issues, and there's something of a plan to move forward. So let's dive into our regular agenda. Assuming, I think that covers everything there. So let's talk about events. First item, office hours. There's a note on here about it potentially transitioning to CNCF.
I think it's
on that?
I think it's transitioning into the bit bucket.
Okay.
Well, one of the things we need to consider just getting rid of.
What does the bit bucket mean?
Dev null.
Yeah, dev null.
The garbage can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tossing it out the window.
All right. I've used Bitbucket. It was fine.
I had to use it back at the University of Michigan. It was not pleasant.
Understandable. All righty. Any other stuff we want to talk about with office hours, or just we'll move on from that? Because we do, the next item on here is something that we wanted to talk about. We started talking about before the meeting, which is the community meeting. Take it away.
All right. And if somebody can take notes so that I can talk and not be taking notes at the same time. So one of the things that we're realizing over time is that in terms of topics, a lot of the topics are getting duplicated for the community meeting between the community meeting and the leads meeting, and people don't want to talk about it till it's finished at the leads meeting. But by then, no one really wants to talk about it ever again. Also, in general, we're not really getting a lot of community topics coming in, no matter how much we've tried to kind of put a form out there, put other ways of like tagging us on things, anything like that. And we're also starting to see a drop in interest in showing up to the meeting, which we've seen for a while now. But we've noticed it with other meetings as well, like meet our contributors, office hours, things like that. So all of that being said, yes, it is a trend, and it is like pulling teeth to get people to submit things. Right now, technically, the community meeting is part of our governance, but kind of wanted to do a bit of a brainstorm on what could we do otherwise. Some thoughts are like short videos that people could watch, or like triggering regular threads in the Kubernetes contributors channel on Slack, something. But in general, I think that the community meeting is no longer really giving us what we had hoped for in the past, like 2 or 3 years. And it's probably time to consider other alternatives. So wanted to bring that to the group, open the floor, and see what people have to say about it. Don't everybody scream all at once.
My first thought is maybe we just address the cadence, because enough people have burnout that maybe moving to like a quarterly meeting might make more sense, and potentially promote it as something less of a community meeting and more of a all hands or something. I don't know. That's my thoughts. as rambly as they are.
Would it maybe make more sense to have it like right after a release or right at the start of a new release, maybe?
That's actually sort of what I was thinking.
stop.
Like between releases might be a good time to have like, hey, this is what's happened in this past release. This is what we're working on forward. Here are large things we are proposing. And the release team is already doing some of that work to collect things for like, you know, the release blogs. So we might be able to do something there with that. I don't know if we still call it the community meeting. Either way, like on the steering side, we need to remove we just need to remove the governance requirements for it because no one's meeting those.
So like a release meeting to talk about the things that have changed and including community changes, I think is a brilliant idea, right? Like we would get folks tuning into that when I was live streaming at Red Hat every time we did an OpenShift release in the hundreds. So
yeah,
imagine
I mean,
for this project.
We could do it as a live stream, like Zoom for contributors, live stream for everybody else. People can see, they can learn to contribute. Like it kind of can be like everything, meet our contributors, all of it rolled into one. It's an option for sure. I'm willing to try to pull it off. So yeah, the old meeting was the state of the project kind of thing. So, but if we did it more as like a collaborative state of the project, maybe.
We used to live stream the old community meetings.
Yeah.
George had it all set up.
Yeah, that's why I have Intel Nooks in my house.
Yeah. Yeah, I think moving it and positioning it more around the release, like it could literally just become another item on the release calendar. Yeah, Caslin, you said what I was going to say.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of people who I approach them about, hey, we need just somebody just to come kick off the discussion about a topic. And they're like, not this time because I'm not ready, or not this time because I don't think it's a good enough topic, or we need to discuss it longer, or. So there's a lot of people who don't really want to do it.
Going on, like actually like Tim, your thing too, where like, okay, we're putting this into effect, this release. Yeah, I'm using it as an example, even though yours can go in really whenever. But that's also when those things can be announced.
Yeah, I definitely would still call it like a community meeting instead of a contributor all hands. I agree that it kind of sounds a little like I'm still at work feeling, I don't know. But if we did do it out almost quarterly, I imagine we could time it with KubeCon as well. So it could be a event at Contributor Summit twice a year, and then twice a year it's on Zoom, which might also help with some of the Zoom fatigue, perhaps. Just a thought.
Yeah.
About 3 meetings a year. Yeah. We'd have to figure out how to live stream it though, for people who can't make it to KubeCon. But I feel like we kind of already do that for Contributor Summit, don't we?
They aren't live streamed, they're recorded. Live streaming is very expensive.
Extremely expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's worth thinking about.
I probably wouldn't do them at the summits. We do sort of talk about those things at the summits, but like the way the releases and all that tend to be timed, like try to factor in around KubeCons. And sometimes it winds up being sort of in a release, with the way the schedule plays out.
Yeah. Yeah, because we don't really have much control over when they schedule a KubeCon. Most of the time, it's really based on whatever city they choose, what's available and when and all that. That's fair. Would be nice to hold at least one though at the contributor summit, because I feel like it would socialize it a little bit more and get more people to show up for it. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It would probably get more people to show up, but I don't know if that's like, do we really want to sit there and talk about that as like, I'm talking about the time it's going to take, thinking about that aspect of it, right? Like if we had every SIG talk about their enhancements or whatever, every release, this meeting would be like 4 hours long.
Yeah, that's true.
So
that's true.
We're going to have
that's
to do
fair.
some curating here of, you know, what do we want to highlight? And we can lean on the leads for that, but we also have to be like, you know, like give us your important ones or limit them to a certain amount of time or topics or something. Yeah. Because I think we all agree a full hour meeting going longer than that is nuts.
Yeah.
There's also a question.
Sorry, go ahead.
There's a question in the chat about
if I have to run 4 hours, that'd be awful. Go for it.
There's also a question in the chat about why we don't live stream contributor summits.
It is extremely pricey. Like getting equipment for one room was an additional $40,000.
Yeah, it's a couple things, right? Like you need the gear to take the standard video camera feed and turn it into something that can be streamed. And then you need the bandwidth, you need like and the horsepower, and then mics, and then people to run it all, and then everything else. It gets really expensive really fast.
There's also the aspect that a lot of the sessions at Contributor Summit tend to be collaborative as well, especially like the unconference sessions and the SIG meet and greet sessions. And those, even if we did try to live stream them, they're generally very hard to participate in remotely because you have multiple people that are talking at the same time, and you know, you become kind of like an outsider in the remote experience in those cases.
And when we look at what the cost is that Bob mentioned, realize the Contributor Summit typically happens in maybe 4 rooms at a time. So it becomes even more expensive at that point.
Yeah. Regarding the question about like the SIGs and 24 SIGs, 5 minutes taking 2 hours, just in case some folks don't know, just to give a bit of context to the community meeting like 2 or 3 years ago, what it used to be is that we had 3 SIGs, sometimes 4, at every community meeting that were assigned. And it was a rotating assignment system where you were assigned to come and give a short presentation on what you were up to. So it was more of like a state of the community, walking through each SIG had to give a presentation. That was then removed because the annual reports were doing the same exact thing when they got reworked. And so people were like, why are we giving an update to the community at the community meeting and doing annual reports? And I think there was one other reporting system they had. And so it was kind of slashed in interest of trying to make it a little more accessible and not asking SIG leaderships to constantly be doing updates all the time, which is kind of why we don't have that kind of update anymore. So the next iteration that we've been trying to pull off was having all of the KEPs, or the Kubernetes enhancement proposals, trying to have all those show up at the community meeting because they're typically cross group. Well, then people don't really want to sit and talk about them. They'd rather deal with it later. And then it became, well, whatever topic people want to talk about. And now we can't get topics. So I think that's kind of the evolution that we're currently talking about, just to give a bit of background to folks who maybe weren't around for any of that. Yeah. So fun times. Sounds like people are up for the idea of not having a monthly community meeting, but we need to figure out something. So shall I open an issue and get the conversation started in issues?
I would, yeah.
You can unmute. Go ahead.
So like I was just thinking about a conversation that happened in a steering committee meeting a couple of months back. The conversation was around how do we better how do we make it easier for SIGs to generate data for annual reports? And one of the suggestions that was discussed was maybe generating this data per release rather than having to do it all at once at the end of the year. I don't know what happened about that, but like drawing a parallel to that here, if we did want to do something that the community meeting hoped to achieve, but not get everyone on a Zoom call, it would be something along the lines of like a blog or something. The good thing about that is that we now have full automation to generate KEPs that each SIG has been working on. That got merged just this week. So if that's something that we want to work on, or if that's something that we want to do, we have, like, it's pretty easy to do it now, rather than having do it at a contributor summit in person.
All right. Shall we move on? Sounds like we have some ideas for the direction on this. Do you have an idea for what you want to do next? I also missed a couple of those because, as you saw, the cat was attacking, if anyone noticed. But alrighty. Oh, yes. That's right. Good. Next step is opening the issue. And we already talked about contributor summits quite a bit in that, but I'm sure that there's quite a bit more we could say about it. We do only have, 17 minutes left? So 18 minutes left. So yeah, 17 minutes left. So do we want to talk more about contributor summits, or shall we move on in the agenda?
Does anyone have any questions about contributor summit?
I've been, what positions are still needed?
I believe, I think all of our positions are going to be filled, but they're in states of people getting themselves sorted out. Folks who said, yes, I volunteer, but have not actually committed. I believe that's the status we're in. I'm going to find the issue and look it up, though.
Do we have anybody on Reg yet?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Mars volunteered to take Reg, and Arnaud said that he might take Reg, and they are figuring that out amongst themselves. So we'll have either 1 or 2 leads for Reg. And we will know that by our meeting next Monday.
Sweet.
Let's see. Content's ready. Comms is ready. Reg is up in the air, but being sorted out. Celebration is ready. Ops, I need confirmation. And the SIG meet and greet, we actually have someone to run it this time. So
I was also thinking of volunteering to help out with ops, but I haven't done it yet. So I'll say it now.
Ops is definitely something that will need a lot of help on site.
Cool.
Yeah.
Other than that, we started the meetings sort of on short notice, and then the second meeting happened on MLK Day. So we expected that there would be low turnout and there'd be some confusion. But by this coming Monday, we should have a lot of things sorted out. It should be sailing a lot more smoothly.
Sounds good. If you want to grab the issue and put it into the chat for anyone who's interested in helping and hasn't said so yet, that might be a good idea.
I need to update the issue with all of the new folks.
Wonderful.
Here it is in chat.
Good 3-minute coverage of that topic. Any other questions about the contributor summit? Oh yes, there's a hand up.
Actually, this time in the KubeCon EU, I'm attending for the first time in person. So I would like to understand just a gist about Contributor Summit as a whole, and what are the kind of agenda or line items to be known before attending the summit in person. Yeah.
So primarily the summit is going to be, it's an entire day zero event. It'll happen on Tuesday before the conference proper starts. We typically start with a AMA with the steering committee so that everybody gets about an hour to just ask their questions. And then it breaks out into a number of tracks. For the past couple, it's been multiple tracks of unconference. So the topics tend to be decided on the day of the conference so that folks can break into the sessions that they want to talk about the most. And depending on what we get from a CFP, we can also have a set of prepared presentations. Okay. And we'll have a SIG session where folks get to meet with all the SIGs and ask them what they're working on, and possibly do working sessions, whatever the SIGs want to do with that time block.
All right.
I would highly recommend just checking out kates.dev/summit for that. Should have all the information about it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, any other questions?
Moving on.
Let's move on. If you do have any questions, you know where to find us. Mentoring. Anything we want to discuss around mentoring today?
Where does mentoring kind of stand right now, I guess, is my question.
No one is doing it.
Okay. I was
the
just curious.
CLI and apps finished, I think, a month or two back. So yeah, that's kind of it.
Hi, Tarva.
Hello. Just came back from the release team meeting.
Thanks for joining.
Glad to have you.
I should say the mentoring meeting does not exist.
Okay.
There. That's the. Sorry, I should been clear on that.
But it sounds like as the programs start up, we'll probably start things up again. Okay, so we'll move on past that for now. Contributor comms. Is there anyone here from that group today?
Yeah, we've been a little busy over here in contributor comms. So some changes Kazlan and I worked on last week. Thank you, Bob, for your help. We've updated our owners files to have all of our sub-project leads be approvers and so forth. We've also updated our charter to reflect the change from marketing team to contributor comms and a few other things. Generated a role book for leading the sub-project, which is, it's there, and I think it's kind of like, as we discover things, we'll add things. But I'm glad Tarva's here. He can kind of dive into our automated tweet system is not very automated right now. So ping Kazlan, myself, Tarva, you can just ping the whole comms team if you want, if you need tweets.
We do have a channel.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing there is that we're like kind of at this tipping point of why doesn't it work versus should we find alternatives?
But we can always help out with tweets. If you file an issue in the repo, we will make sure that it gets done. Or if you ping us, we will make sure that it gets done. Even if our automation in GitHub is broken, we have other tools.
Yeah, we have a buffer account that we can load things up into, which it would be cool if we had some kind of, if there was a GitHub action that took like issue contents and pushed them to buffer, and then we just hit approve and out the door it goes. That'd be kind of nice, but also not as transparent either. So no real win situation. And Tarva, you got anything to add there?
Yeah, well, I was working on Zapier. I was trying some things. I thought it had some automation related to GitHub till buffer, but I couldn't find any capabilities to schedule through buffer. So
Yeah,
in Zapier, they don't have anything to schedule the thing to buffer.
yeah, you have to kind of like feed it to something else and then give another role or zap, as they call it, another job to where it takes it from that thing and then puts it in buffer. So in my case, for example, I do all the suggested reads, you know, anything I read, I share kind of thing. That goes to a bookmarking app. And then there's another zap that takes it from the bookmarking app to buffer. So it's actually two jobs that you would have to do. But I think the problem with GitHub is that I don't know if the description, the actual issue text is available via Zapier. I think that was the problem I came across.
No,
or was it?
I'll share the Zapier I have created.
Okay, cool.
And we can talk about it more. I was going to bring this up in marketing meeting, but glad this topic brought up here also.
Cool.
I've created a dummy thing, but it's not letting me do buffer stuff. So we'll need some help there.
Yeah. Feel free to ping me whenever you're working on it or have time.
So we have technical work going on our tweet automation. We have updated our name from contributor comms from marketing team to contributor comms. And we have most of our roles pretty much sorted out, and our leads now have permissions via owners files. I think are the main updates. Any questions? Alrighty. If you do need help communicating anything, you can find us on Slack or on GitHub. Next item is contributor documentation. First item is contributor guide, if you want to talk about that, Bob.
Sorry, I hit this hard mute button, not the software one. We can just punt this and move on to the next thing.
Okay, sounds good. I know there's a couple of folks in contributor comms that are standing by ready to help with that if you need anything. Next item, moderation in media. Do we have anyone here today to talk about that?
Nigel, you had an update on YouTube?
Yes. Hi. Yeah, I was thinking that we have the proof of concept Zap working on this channel, for which Splain is like relatively reliable. Like I've been seeing, we have 2 video uploads every week, one from Splain, one from the Zap. And I was wondering if until we figure out, you know, what we're going to do largely to get it working across like the org, if we could turn the Zap onto a SIG that is manually uploading right now. So I know like SIG Docs, for example, like they manually upload their YouTube videos. And I'm wondering if there's a SIG that we could work with to turn this on for them so that it's actually doing something useful while we figure out what to do for the global Kubernetes account.
So SIG Node actually reached out to me about this the other day and asking about how to automate this process. So I think there's a good candidate right there.
There you go.
Perfect. Yeah, if you could put me in touch with them and like we could work on turning the Zap on for them, that would be great. That's all I had.
I feel like we're going to be asking steering for money for Zapier at some point, Bob.
Oh, we're already covered.
Okay,
LF,
cool.
LF has it as one of the line items that they support.
Sweet. Awesome.
Good stuff.
Marky's out for a bit, so like I'm taking over with a lot of the YouTube stuff. So if there's YouTube stuff while Marky's gone, let me know.
And very much appreciated. And if you need any help, of course, we're all here. Alrighty. GitHub management.
So I just had one item. This is more of RFC than anything else. So if anyone has comments or opinions about this, a quick summary is that there is a Prow plugin called Needs Rebase, which essentially adds the label Needs Rebase whenever there's a merge conflict on your PR. The way it does it is it gets triggered either on a commit change, or it's run as a periodic. And right now it's, I think, running every 6 hours and checking for merge conflicts, etc. The one problem that I ran into this with while working on something on KK was if there is a merge conflict that occurs, but that PR which caused the merge conflict is reverted within a span of 6 hours, that label will remain there unless you rerun all of the CI or you wait for the 6-hour window to close. And it probably isn't that far-fetched a scenario where you have a PR that that's maybe like unblocking the Kubernetes CI, which is blocked quite often. And like this might happen, and you are essentially wasting time rerunning the CI over there. So this is just like an ask or a proposal to just add functionality to manually retrigger that plugin by just adding an additional command to do so. I opened the issue up I think last week. I'm not sure if folks have seen it. Maybe I should send an email about it. But if people from here have any about it.
I see a +1 in the chat to sending comms out about it. Any other comments? All right, we can chat more about comms. And we have 2 minutes left. There is one other item in the open mic discussion. I think this is different from the other PR issue that we talked about earlier. Tim Hawken has opened an issue about Prow should not @mention the PR author. Looks like folks are generally in agreement on the issue. Any comments about that? You can find the link in the notes.
I just had one question about it. So currently, what the PR open generally works on removing only the Kate's bot response where there is no description in the Autobot response. So do we want to really remove all the @mentions from bot response? So Kate CI robot should not ever mention the author. Do we want something like that, or we should just focus on not mentioning the PR author for certain instances?
I would probably leave it focused to just the PR author for now.
Yeah. I saw comments saying that they wanted to remove the mention. I was confused whether they were talking about the whole mentioning thing or just related to PR's authors. So yeah, just wanted to confirm that.
Sounds like it's just PR authors, and there's a specific example in the GitHub issue of the message that they're talking about removing, looks like. And with that, we are at time.
Sorry,
last comment?
I think it's really just, let's see. Essentially, it's just updating that one message to remove the adding the author. So it'd be issue, and yeah, it looks like you have it covered in your PR. From a quick look.
It's basically done, but wanted to get if I missed something totally. So yeah.
Awesome. And we are at time, so I want to go ahead and close things up so folks can get to their next meetings if they need to. Thank you all so much for joining today. If you have any questions, you know where to find us on Slack in the SIG ContribEx channel. See ya.
Safe Kubernetesing.